Hunted like prey, the Apache woman had no hope, until one cowboy stood against it. Naichi ran as fast as she could, the dry sand burning under her bare feet. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing like a drum in the stillness of the desert. Behind her, she could hear the distant shouts and war cries of the raiders who had attacked her village. The memory of that night haunted her. Flames rising against the dark sky, her friends and family scattered, screaming, and the sense of helplessness that had pressed down on her like a heavy stone. She had escaped only because she had known the secret paths of the desert, the hidden trails that twisted among the rocks and sagebrush. But she knew that knowledge could only carry her so far. The sun rose high, scorching the earth and making the sand shimmer in waves. Naiche paused, pressing her hands to her knees, gasping for air. Her throat was dry, her lips cracked. She had no water, no food, and barely enough strength to keep moving. Every instinct in her body told her to hide, but hiding would only delay the inevitable. The raiders were skilled trackers. They would find her sooner or later if she stayed in one place too long. She had to keep moving, keep thinking, keep surviving. As she stumbled along the trail, she remembered the lessons her mother had taught her as a child. "The desert can kill you, Naichi," her mother had said, "but it can also protect you if you know its ways. The wind, the sun, the animals, watch them and they will guide you." Now each shadow and sound seemed like both a threat and a guide. She saw a hawk circling above and knew that a small cluster of trees might be nearby, offering shade and water. She adjusted her path, careful not to leave clear tracks, and moved with the quiet precision of someone who had learned to read the land. Hours passed, or maybe it was only minutes. Naichi had lost all sense of time. The desert stretched endlessly, a world of golden hills, jagged rocks, and hidden dangers. She stumbled over a rock and fell hard, scraping her hands and knees. Pain shot through her body, but she bit her lip and forced herself to rise. She could not afford to stop. Not now. Not ever. Each step was a test of willpower. Each breath, a small victory. By mid-afternoon, she found a narrow canyon, its walls providing shelter from the scorching sun. She crawled into the shadows and sank to the ground, her back against the cool stone. For the first time in hours, she allowed herself a moment to look at her hands, bloodied and dirty, and to take stock of her condition. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she had eaten nothing since dawn. Her water skin was empty, and the sun had burned the last traces of her strength from her body. Still, she refused to cry or give up. Crying would not save her. It would only make her weaker. Naichi thought about her family, about the village she had loved. She remembered the laughter of the children, the warmth of the fires at night, and the songs her grandmother used to sing. Those memories brought both pain and courage. She could not let the raiders take everything. If she survived, she would honor them by living, by continuing the life that had been almost stolen from her. The desert was full of life, though Naiche barely noticed it at first. She heard the faint rustle of lizards and the distant call of a coyote. Every sound was a reminder that she was not alone, that nature watched and responded to her presence. She crept forward, eyes scanning the landscape, looking for anything useful. A small patch of cactus caught her attention, and she carefully pricked a finger to test for moisture. It was enough to moisten her lips slightly, a small relief, but it reminded her of how fragile her survival was. Night fell quickly, colder than she expected. The desert transformed into a world of shadows and whispers. Naichi made a small fire, shielding it behind a rock to avoid attracting attention. She roasted a few wild roots she had found, chewing them slowly, savoring each bite, as if it were a feast. Her body ached from hunger and exhaustion, but her mind remained sharp. She knew she could not sleep for long. Raiders could appear at any time, but she forced herself to rest in short bursts, her head leaning against her knees. As she sat there, staring into the flickering fire, memories of her childhood returned in waves. She remembered running through the fields with her friends, chasing butterflies and listening to her father's stories. Those stories had always been about bravery, about finding strength when faced with impossible odds. Now they gave her a kind of quiet determination. She repeated the words silently, telling herself she was strong, she was clever, she could survive. The next day, Nightshade moved again, this time toward a distant ridge where she thought she might find water. The journey was slow, each step deliberate. Her feet were raw from the sand, her muscles screamed in protest, but she kept going. She used every skill her people had taught her, tracking the movement of birds, following the shadow of the sun, listening to the wind. The desert, which had seemed endless and merciless, began to feel like a teacher rather than an enemy. During the afternoon, she encountered a rattlesnake coiled near a rock. Naichi froze, watching its careful movements. She knew one wrong step could be fatal. Holding her breath, she slowly backed away, respecting the snake's space. It struck her that survival was not just about speed or strength. It was also about caution, patience, and respect for the world around her. The desert had rules, and she had to follow them if she wanted to live. By evening, she finally reached a small stream hidden among a grove of scrubby trees. The water was clear and cold, a gift after so many hours of thirst. She drank slowly, savoring each drop, then splashed her face and rinsed the dust from her hands. It was a small victory, but it gave her hope. She realized that even in the darkest moments, small blessings could be found if she remained vigilant and patient. As night fell again, Naiche built a shelter from branches and rocks, careful to remain hidden. She ate a few more roots and rested, her body aching but her spirit strengthened. She reflected on the day's events and realized that she had grown stronger, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. She had faced fear, pain, and exhaustion, yet she had survived. Each challenge had taught her something new about herself and the world. In the stillness of the desert night, Naiche thought about the future. She did not know if she would ever return to her village or if her family had survived. But she knew one thing: she would not give up. She would keep moving, keep surviving, and keep fighting, no matter what lay ahead. The desert had tested her, but it had also shown her her own strength. And for the first time since the attack, she felt a flicker of hope. With that hope, she drifted into a light sleep, still alert, still aware of the dangers around her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she felt ready. She had survived this far, and she would survive further. The desert was harsh, but Naichi was tougher. And in that quiet moment, under the endless stars, she felt a small but powerful sense of triumph, the knowledge that even when hunted, even when desperate, she could endure. Naiche moved cautiously through the rocky desert trail, every step deliberate. The memory of the raiders still haunted her, and though she had survived the first day, she knew danger could appear at any moment. She pressed on, eyes scanning the horizon, ears straining for the slightest sound. Every bird call or rustle in the bushes made her jump, but she forced herself to remain calm. She had learned quickly that fear could be as deadly as any enemy. As the afternoon sun climbed high in the sky, she spotted a figure in the distance. At first, she thought it might be another raider, ready to take her by surprise. Her heart pounded as she crouched behind a large rock, peering carefully. The figure moved, slowly, cautiously, and seemed to be watching the land rather than seeking her. A man on horseback, dressed in worn clothes and a wide-brimmed hat, carried no weapons visible at first. Naichi's instincts told her to run, but something about the way he rode suggested he was not a threat. Still, she stayed hidden, studying him. The man stopped at a small stream ahead, dismounted, and knelt to drink water. Naiche watched him carefully, noting the way he handled his horse, the gentleness in his movements, and the sharp awareness in his eyes. He was alert, cautious, and careful, qualities she recognized from her own struggle to survive. Slowly she realized that he might be a stranger who could help, though she could not yet be sure. Trust did not come easily. It had almost cost her life before. Hours passed, and Naiche continued to shadow him at a safe distance. She saw that he was skilled at reading the land. He examined footprints, noticed broken twigs, and seemed to anticipate danger. For the first time in days, she felt a spark of admiration for someone outside her own people. Maybe, just maybe, he could be an ally. But she reminded herself to stay cautious. He was a stranger, and strangers were not always kind. By late afternoon, the man noticed her. He didn't shout or make sudden movements. Instead, he tipped his hat slightly and called out in a calm, steady voice, "I don't mean you any harm." "My name is Cole. I'm just passing through." Naichi froze, unsure what to do. Every instinct told her to run, but her body was exhausted, her energy nearly spent. She considered hiding again, but the thought of being alone in the desert, without help or food or water, made her hesitate. After a long moment, she spoke softly from behind the rocks, careful to keep her voice low. "Why should I trust you?" Her tone was firm, but there was a hint of fear. She had seen too much cruelty to offer trust easily. Cole smiled gently, not in arrogance, but in understanding. "You don't have to trust me yet," he said, "but I can help you. I know this land, and I know how to survive here. If you want, I can show you a safer place to rest." His voice was calm, steady, and there was no hint of pressure. Naichi felt the honesty in his words, though she remained wary. She watched him carefully for a long time, considering her options. Her body ached from exhaustion, and she knew she couldn't make it through another night alone in the open. Finally, she took a cautious step forward, keeping her hands free. "I'll go with you," she said, "but if you try to trick me, I will run, and I won't look back." Cole nodded, as if he expected her caution. "Fair enough," he said, gesturing for her to follow. He led her to a small, shaded area near a rocky outcrop, where a few small bushes offered some cover from the sun. He helped her water her empty canteen from a nearby stream and offered her a piece of dried bread he had in his bag. Naiche accepted it silently, grateful, but still on alert. As they moved together, Cole shared stories of the land and survival, not in a boastful way, but as a guide. He showed her which plants could be eaten, how to find water hidden beneath rocks, and where to step to avoid rattlesnakes. Naiche listened carefully, absorbing every word. Though she had learned these skills from her people, hearing them from someone else reinforced her understanding and gave her new perspective. She began to feel a small measure of trust, though she reminded herself not to let it grow too quickly. The journey was not easy. The sun scorched their backs, and the desert terrain was unforgiving. They had to climb rocky hills, cross dry riverbeds, and navigate dense patches of brush. Naichi noticed that Cole never rushed her, never made her feel weak for being tired. He waited when she needed to catch her breath, and when a patch of thorny bushes blocked the trail, he found a careful path around it. Slowly, she began to see that he genuinely cared about her safety. That night, they made a small camp hidden behind a ridge. Cole built a fire with practiced hands, keeping it low to avoid drawing attention. He offered Naichi a warm drink made from roots and herbs he had carried with him. For the first time since the raid, she felt a sense of comfort, even if it was small. She allowed herself to rest against a rock, watching the fire flicker and listening to the quiet desert night. As they sat by the fire, Naichi began to speak, sharing fragments of her story. She told him about her village, the attack, and her desperate flight through the desert. Cole listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, his expression thoughtful. He didn't judge her, didn't pity her. He simply acknowledged her courage and resilience. That acceptance, simple as it was, meant more to Naichi than she could express. In turn, Cole shared stories of his own travels, of lonely nights on the trail, and of people he had helped along the way. He spoke of the dangers of the desert, not as threats to frighten her, but as lessons to understand and respect the land. Naichi realized that he had lived a life full of challenges, and yet he remained kind and steadfast. It was a quality she had not seen in many people outside her village. Over the next few days, Naichi and Cole traveled together. The bond between them grew slowly, built on mutual respect and necessity. Naichi still maintained her caution, but she began to rely on his knowledge and guidance. Cole, for his part, admired her courage and resourcefulness. He recognized that she was not just a survivor. She was strong, clever, and determined. Their journey was quiet but meaningful, filled with shared effort and understanding. During their travels, they encountered small dangers. A sudden sandstorm forced them to take shelter in a narrow canyon. A band of scavengers passed nearby, and Cole skillfully guided them out of sight. Each challenge strengthened their trust. Naichi realized that she no longer felt completely alone. There was someone watching her back, someone who understood the harshness of the world and respected her strength. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the desert in shades of orange and pink, Naichi and Cole stopped on a ridge to rest. The wind was cool, and the silence of the desert was broken only by the distant call of a coyote. Naichi felt a sense of peace she had not experienced in days. She knew the danger had not passed entirely, but with Cole by her side she felt a glimmer of hope. Cole looked at her and said quietly, "You're stronger than you think. This land is harsh, but you're tougher than it." Naichi nodded, understanding the truth in his words. She had survived alone for days, navigating a deadly landscape with nothing but her wits and courage. And now, with someone who truly understood her struggle, she felt the possibility of a future she had not dared to imagine before. That night, they camped beneath the stars. Naichi lay awake for a long time, thinking about her journey so far, and the man who had appeared like an unexpected guide. She realized that survival was not just about avoiding danger. It was also about finding allies, learning from others, and opening oneself, carefully, to trust. And though she remained wary, a quiet sense of gratitude and hope began to grow in her heart. As sleep finally took her, Naichi felt the desert around her not just as a place of peril, but as a world full of lessons, challenges, and sometimes unexpected kindness. She had survived the first trials, found an ally, and discovered that even in the harshest of places, human connection could provide strength. And as she drifted into a deep, exhausted sleep, she knew that tomorrow they would face the desert together, and that perhaps with courage and trust, they could overcome whatever came next. Naichi and Cole moved cautiously through the rocky hills, the sun beating down on their backs. The desert seemed endless, but Cole had promised a safer path to shelter, a hidden canyon where they could rest and plan their next move. Every step they took was careful. The crunch of sand beneath their feet and the whisper of the wind were their constant companions. Naichi's senses were sharper than ever. Every sound, every shadow, every movement could be a warning. As they rounded a bend, Naiche's sharp eyes caught a faint glimmer in the distance. She froze, motioning for Cole to stop. "Someone's there," she whispered. Her voice was low but firm, filled with a quiet tension that had become second nature over the past days. She scanned the horizon, noticing the figures of several men moving cautiously between the rocks. The raiders. They had found the trail. Cole crouched beside her, studying the men as carefully as Naiche had. "We need to be smart," he said. His voice was calm but serious. "They outnumber us, and they know the land too. But we have the advantage of surprise and the terrain. We can use that." Naiche nodded, her body tense, heart racing, but her mind already thinking through possibilities. She trusted Cole, and she knew that with careful planning, they could face this challenge. The raiders were moving in a loose formation, scanning the rocks and valleys as if they expected someone to appear. Naiche crouched behind a large boulder, keeping low. She could see the determination in their posture, but she also noticed their impatience. They had been searching for hours under the scorching sun, and frustration was beginning to show. Patience, Naiche thought, would be their greatest weapon. Cole signaled for her to follow him into a narrow canyon nearby. "This way," he whispered, guiding her silently. The canyon's walls were steep, and the shadows provided excellent cover. They moved slowly, using the rocks to hide their movements. Naiche's heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to focus on each step, each breath. Panic could be dangerous. Clarity would keep them alive. From their hidden position, they watched the raiders pass by the entrance of the canyon. One man stopped and peered into the shadows, but Cole had anticipated this. He motioned for Naiche to stay perfectly still, and she pressed herself against the cool stone, holding her breath. The man shrugged and moved on. Naiche exhaled slowly, relief mixing with adrenaline. She had survived so far because she had stayed calm when fear threatened to overwhelm her. Cole whispered, "We can lead them away if we use the canyon to our advantage. There are narrow paths that they won't notice, and from there we can control the situation." Naiche nodded. She had learned to trust him, and she realized that courage was not about acting alone, but about acting wisely with someone you could rely on. The raiders were closing in. Their voices echoed off the rocks, filled with frustration and determination. Naiche and Cole moved silently along the canyon floor, keeping to the shadows. They reached a narrow ledge that overlooked a small clearing. From there, they could see the raiders' movements clearly, and Cole pointed out a plan. "We don't need to fight them head-on. We just need to guide them, slow them down, and make them believe they are in control while we control the path." Naiche's mind raced. She had never faced such danger before, but she remembered the lessons of her people: how to use the land to survive, how to stay patient, how to watch and wait for the right moment. She looked at Cole, and for the first time she felt a sense of partnership, a feeling that they could face this together. The raiders were now in the clearing below. Cole signaled to Naiche, and together they made a subtle movement, kicking small stones down the canyon to make noise. One raider looked up, puzzled. Another called out, trying to spot the source. Cole whispered instructions, and Naiche followed them perfectly, moving quietly from one shadow to another. Their plan was working. The raiders were being drawn away from their path, unknowingly guided by the pair hidden above. Suddenly, one of the raiders spotted movement in the shadows. He pointed, and a shout rang out. Naiche's heart leapt, but Cole remained calm. "Stay low," he whispered. The raider advanced, carefully scanning the rocks. Naichi crouched behind a boulder, holding perfectly still. Her mind raced, thinking of every possible move. She realized that survival was not about fighting. It was about patience, observation, and timing. Using a clever trick, Cole grabbed a small branch and tossed it so it landed a few feet away. The sound drew the raider's attention, and he moved toward it. Naichi's pulse slowed slightly as she realized the plan was working. One by one, the raiders were being lured into positions where they could be monitored without danger. Naichi felt a surge of confidence. Together, they were controlling the situation. The sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the canyon. The raiders were tired, frustrated, and confused. Naichi and Cole used the fading light to their advantage, moving silently along the rocks and guiding the men further away from the canyon. Naichi could feel her muscles aching from the constant tension, but she ignored the fatigue. Focus was more important than exhaustion. Finally, as the last light of day disappeared, the raiders decided to retreat. They had been led far enough from the canyon and no longer believed they could find their target. Cole watched them leave, then turned to Naichi. "We did it," he said quietly. "They're gone for now." Naichi allowed herself a small smile, relief washing over her. They had survived the confrontation without a single injury, and she had learned the power of patience, planning, and courage. That night, they made a camp in the canyon, hidden from view. Naichi and Cole sat by a small fire, both exhausted but alert. Naichi reflected on what had just happened. She realized that fear could be overcome, and danger could be faced with careful thought and courage. She felt a growing sense of trust and admiration for Cole, who had guided her through the peril with calm wisdom. As they ate a simple meal of dried bread and water, Naichi shared her thoughts. "I never imagined I could face something like that and survive," she said softly. Cole nodded. "It's not just about strength," he said. "It's about knowing when to act, when to wait, and how to use what's around you. You did very well." Naiche felt pride, a small but significant spark of confidence that she had not felt since the attack on her village. The next morning, Naiche woke before dawn, listening to the quiet sounds of the desert. Birds called softly, and the wind whispered through the canyon walls. She felt a renewed sense of determination. The confrontation had taught her that even in the face of overwhelming danger, careful thought and courage could lead to survival. She had grown stronger, not just in body, but in mind and spirit. Cole was already awake, checking the surroundings and planning the next steps. He noticed her rising and nodded. "Rested?" he asked. Naichi smiled faintly. "As much as I can be," she replied. Together they prepared to leave the canyon, ready to continue their journey through the desert. The confrontation had been a test, and they had passed it together. Naichi felt a quiet strength in herself, knowing that she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they walked into the bright morning sun, Naichi felt a sense of purpose. She was no longer just surviving. She was learning, adapting, and growing stronger every day. With Cole by her side, she knew that she could navigate the dangers of the desert, face her fears, and protect herself from harm. The confrontation with the raiders had been a turning point. She had faced fear and come through stronger, more confident, and more aware of her own strength. By the time the sun reached its highest point, Naiche and Cole had traveled far enough to find a hidden oasis. The small pool of water, shaded by trees, was a gift. They rested, drank, and reflected on the ordeal they had survived. Naichi realized that she had not only survived the danger, but had also discovered courage she did not know she possessed. She had learned the value of patience, careful observation, and the importance of trust. As the day ended, Naiche felt a quiet hope. The desert was still full of dangers, but she knew that together, she and Cole could face them. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and exhaustion, and had survived. Now, she was stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever. And with each step forward, she carried that strength with her, ready for whatever the desert might bring next. The sun rose slowly over the desert, casting warm, golden light across the sand and rocks. Naiche woke early, stretching her tired muscles and listening to the quiet morning sounds of the oasis. The small pool of water reflected the sky, and a gentle breeze moved through the trees, carrying the scent of dry earth and wild herbs. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of calm. The raiders were gone. And for now, the danger that had haunted her every step seemed to have lifted. Cole was already awake, kneeling beside the water, checking the trail ahead. When he noticed Naiche stirring, he smiled gently.
"Morning," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "We have a long journey ahead today."
"But we'll take it one step at a time." Naiche nodded, grateful for his steady presence. She realized that she had learned more from him than she had expected. Not just survival skills, but patience, courage, and the importance of trust. After drinking and washing their faces, they packed their small belongings and prepared to continue. The desert stretched before them, vast and unending, but Naiche no longer felt hopeless. She had endured so much. The loss of her village, the fear of the raiders, the scorching sun and the cold nights. But she had survived. With every challenge, she had grown stronger, sharper, and more confident in her abilities. As they walked, Naiche thought about her village and the people she had lost. Her heart ached with sadness, but she refused to let it weigh her down. She remembered the lessons her parents and elders had taught her about resilience and courage. She had always believed that strength came from numbers, from family and friends surrounding her. But now she knew that strength could also come from within, from determination, intelligence, and the will to survive. Cole noticed her reflective silence and spoke gently. "It's okay to think about them," he said. "But you're not alone anymore. You have skills, you have courage, and you have a friend to help you along the way. You can honor the people you've lost by living fully, by surviving and growing stronger every day." Naiche nodded. His words warmed her heart, reminding her that hope was not lost, even in the harshest times. The journey through the desert was long and difficult, but Naiche had learned to read the land. She spotted small signs of water beneath stones, noticed the tracks of animals that could lead them to food, and understood the subtle signals of the wind and sun. She moved with confidence, guided by her instincts and the knowledge she had gained over the past days. Cole walked beside her, offering guidance when needed, but also allowing her to make decisions and take the lead. One afternoon, as they climbed a steep ridge, they spotted smoke rising in the distance. Naiche's heart skipped a beat. Could it be raiders again? She glanced at Cole, who studied the horizon carefully. "It could be a settlement," he said cautiously. "Or travelers. We'll approach carefully and see." They moved slowly, keeping low and using the rocks as cover. Naiche felt the familiar tension of uncertainty, but it was tempered by the confidence she had gained. She no longer panicked at every sign of danger. She assessed, planned, and acted. As they drew closer, they realized it was a small group of travelers resting near a shaded area, and they waved to Naiche and Cole, smiling kindly. Relief flooded through her, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a small moment of joy. She had survived the desert, faced danger, and found allies along the way. The simple act of seeing friendly faces felt like a miracle. The travelers offered them food and water, and Naiche and Cole gratefully accepted. They shared stories of the desert, of survival, and of the people they had met. Naichi listened carefully, learning more about the world beyond her village and the hardships others faced. She realized that she was not the only one who had experienced loss and fear, but she had also discovered resilience and courage within herself that others admired. That evening they set up camp near the travelers, and Naiche allowed herself to rest deeply for the first time in many nights. She watched the stars twinkle above, feeling a sense of peace she had not felt in a long time. The desert, which had seemed endless and merciless, had become a place of lessons, strength, and even unexpected kindness. She had faced the harshest challenges and had come through stronger, wiser, and more confident. Cole sat beside her as the fire crackled softly. "You've changed," he said quietly. "The girl who ran alone through the desert is not the same as the woman who walks beside me now. You've grown stronger, braver, and wiser, and that strength will carry you through anything." Naichi looked at him, gratitude in her eyes. "I never thought I could survive this," she admitted. "But I did, because I had to, and because you helped me." Cole shook his head gently. "No, you survived because of your courage, your intelligence, and your determination. I just helped you see what you already had inside. That strength was yours all along." Naichi smiled faintly, understanding the truth in his words. She had discovered a power within herself she had never known existed, a power to endure, to adapt, and to face the unknown without fear. The next morning, they continued their journey. Naichi felt a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that her life was no longer defined by the attack on her village or by the dangers she had faced. Instead, her life was defined by her resilience, her courage, and her ability to adapt and survive. Each step she took was a reminder that she had the power to shape her future. As the days passed, Naiche and Cole traveled through valleys, over hills, and along winding desert trails. They faced challenges, storms that made the sand fly like needles, rocky terrain that tested their endurance, and moments of uncertainty that required careful thought. But Naichi faced each one with growing confidence. She no longer felt like prey. She felt like a survivor, capable and strong. One evening, as they rested near a quiet stream, Naichi reflected on how far she had come. She thought about the people she had lost, the raiders she had evaded, and the hardships she had endured. And yet, she also thought about the strength she had discovered in herself, the lessons she had learned, and the kindness of a stranger who had stood by her. The contrast between fear and courage, despair and hope, was clearer than ever. She understood that life could be harsh, but it could also offer opportunities for growth and resilience. Cole noticed her thoughtful expression and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Naiche smiled softly. "I'm thinking about everything I've learned," she said. "About the desert, about survival, and about myself. I feel stronger now, more capable. I know I can face what comes next." Cole nodded approvingly. "That's good," he said, "because life will always bring challenges, but you've proven that you can meet them, and you can do so with courage and intelligence." As they approached the edge of the desert, the landscape began to change. The harsh, dry sand gave way to patches of grass, small shrubs, and eventually trees. The air was cooler, filled with the scent of water and life. Naichi felt a sense of relief and joy she had not felt in weeks. She had survived the desert, faced danger, and discovered her inner strength. She had also found a friend and ally in Cole, someone who had helped her navigate the perils of the wilderness and had shown her the power of trust and cooperation. In the safety of the greener lands, Naiche and Cole paused to rest. They had traveled far, and the journey had tested them both in ways they could not have imagined. But through it all, they had grown stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Naiche looked at the horizon and felt a quiet hope for the future. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that she was capable of facing them. That night, as they camped under the stars once more, Naiche reflected on everything that had happened. She thought about her village, her family, and the fear she had felt when she was alone. She thought about the desert, the raiders, and the lessons she had learned. And she thought about Cole, whose calm presence and guidance had helped her survive and grow. She realized that she had emerged from the ordeal stronger, more confident, and more aware of her own abilities. As she drifted into sleep, Naiche felt a sense of peace. She had survived when she had thought all hope was lost. She had faced danger, uncertainty, and fear, and had emerged stronger than ever. And she knew that with courage, intelligence, and the support of those who truly cared, she could face whatever the future might hold. The desert had tested her, but it had also shown her the power within herself, the power to endure, to adapt, and to thrive. Naichi's journey through the desert had ended, but her story was only beginning. She had discovered strength she had never known, resilience she had never imagined, and hope that had seemed impossible. She had survived when all seemed lost, and in doing so, she had proven that even in the harshest and most unforgiving places, courage, wisdom, and human kindness could light the way forward.